Testing, testing. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, that should be working.
Good.
Unfortunately, I can't hear you.
Be quiet.
Okay. No, Manicam is being dumb. Here's my luck. Where did Manicam go? I have an idea. No. Where'd you go, Manicam? This stream is just riddled with problems about this, guys. I just accidentally killed the video feed of my stream. You can talk, John. I mean, this stream's already pretty bumbled.
All right. Okay.
Okay, there we go. We should be live now.
Excellent. So, where did we leave off? Where was I last heard? Where were we last heard, in fact?
What? Oh, the whole first stream is gone now. But
all right.
Where we're going to pick up now is where we began last time. Ecumenism. Oops. I was about to bumble that pronunciation. Ecumenism. So, when I was a kid, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I left it in my teenage years. And when I came back, a friend showed me back, and well, I started to get into the church militant and discover that there's something seemingly really wrong with the church. And so with that in mind, I started digging and trying to figure out what is wrong with the church. And I ended up coming to the conclusion that there was just this big change in the church in the 60s, which was Vatican II happened around the same time. So correlation has to be causation, right?
Absolutely. I used to think like that until I took a statistics.
Do you think it helped?
Maybe. Terrible jokes aside about statistics, what specifically did your initial research lead you to think were the problems caused by Vatican II?
Well, what really struck me as odd is I didn't dig too much into Vatican II itself. I dug into the happenings around it. And the death of Pope Pius the 12th XII, right? Yes.
Yes.
His death mirrored mercury poisoning very spookily similarly. And then the next pope, I believe Pope, is it John or Paul? Hold on. I got this. Pope John the 23rd. Pope John the 23rd, almost immediately after getting into the papal position, pontiff, I believe is the correct word, after becoming pontiff.
As soon as he sat down on the seat of Peter, he said, okay, we need a Vatican Council.
Exactly. And that struck me as a little bit odd, is that one pope looked like they were assassinated, the next pope ushers in these huge changes. And it actually caused me a schism from the Catholic Church, and I became Orthodox for a minute, or tried to become Orthodox. But right. I realized that my heart, I feel at home in the Catholic Church. And so
Sorry, keep going.
So I returned back to the Catholic Church, and then I ended up doing an English paper recently. And I did it on Vatican II, on the Ecumenism. I keep pronouncing that worse every time. I did it on that of Vatican II. And I discovered that Vatican II isn't the boogeyman that I portrayed it to be in my mind. Is that it's actually kind of good, and it's brought in the Catholic Church that I grew up in.
Now, what I was going to say is that you are not alone in the whole thinking of Vatican II as the boogeyman. Are you familiar with Sedevacanism?
Yes, I am, roughly. I looked into it when I was leaving the Catholic Church.
No. The seemingly changes from Vatican II are what has led some Catholics into Sedevacanism, where they believe that there is no proper pope, therefore the seat is empty. Literally, sede vacant.
Yep. It's an interesting take, and I was thinking about it for a while, but their entire organization is screwed up, as they've had 3 popes at once, really, elected by lay members. If it wasn't for that, I would have actually given them consideration, but I was looking at the Wikipedia page. They had a Mexican or a pope from Mexico that they tried to elect, but since they don't have the see that forces them just to have one, they just end up randomly popping up with popes everywhere.
Yes, that is one of the problems of a rather decentralized, disorganized group. It's very hard to be centralized and actually have a central authority. Although if there are any Sedevacanists listening to the stream, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
What led you to believe that the seat of Peter is empty? What you think the errors of the current anti-pope, in your view, I guess, would be? And how you think the church should go about getting a proper pope back into the chair.
That one I'm actually curious is what would allow them to think that a proper pope is back in the chair? I think it would have to be a pope that would just say, forget Vatican II. We're going back to Latin Mass.
That is absolutely fun to meme and joke this. We need Vatican III. Vatican III, his entire thing says that throw out Vatican II. But there are a lot of good things that did come out of Vatican II. I, for one, am quite fond of the permission to allow the sacraments of Mass in common vernacular instead of Latin. And when we get around to that, I can explain my own take and why I feel so strongly. But that might not be covered.
What?
But the talk about the Novus Ordo, the one where the Mass can be said in the local language instead of Latin, that may or may not be a topic for a different.
I'm okay with going on tangents.
Okay.
So why is that important to you?
Well, I just recently finished a 2-year service in Peace Corps in an Eastern European country, Albania to be specific. And I, being a Roman Catholic, went to church every week. And it was in the local language, Albanian. I was learning it, but it was hard and difficult. I was absolutely thankful that it followed the same formula of the Mass. I was able to pick up on a couple of words pretty quickly because of it. I quickly learned the Albanian Our Father within a month, I guess. And I had a pretty clear idea of what was going on. But not English, not the language that I knew instinctively without thinking about. That went on for about 8 months before an excuse had me winding up spending the weekend in the capital city of Tirana. And I looked up information on the internet. The cathedral had a mass at 9 o'clock in the morning in English for the expatriate community in Tirana. I went in and I was just blown away. Just being able to celebrate the Mass in English again. It was positively wonderful. It was like, or I got the same feeling, the same joy and comfort that I got from the very first time that I went back to church as an adult, having been away from it for.
So what we need to do to bring Catholics back to the church is start doing church in Albanian until for like a couple months and then bring it back to English.
It doesn't have to be Albanian. Any foreign language that you don't really know.
Japanese Mass win.
All right, which one of you meme lords said that? I don't have access to the chat stream.
No. The meme lord said, Beaner Pope, fuck that.
But
the
honestly,
chat is dark and full of racism.
Well, in that case, I'm going to horrify them. I hope that Cardinal Sarah becomes the next. Absolutely based West African cardinal. Seriously, West African priests are incredibly strong, very devout, very orthodox in their beliefs, lowercase o, not capital O, which means that they believe what is said. They follow what is said. They will preach what is said. There's a reason why the West African countries are the ones that you keep on hearing about in the news as going on gay witch hunts or something like that.
We need one
because they are very strong. Yep.
Hot take right there.
Could certainly shake things up.
We might lose half our bishops, though.
The church will struggle, but she will survive. Although, really, you can say that about anything, or about any case that the church goes, or situation that the church goes.
Yeah.
The modern world is very harsh to the church and organized religion in general, but the church especially. But because she is backed by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the gates of hell will not overcome it.
Amen. Now back to ecumenism. I'm getting worse every time, and I can't stop getting worse. But we opened the door to the Eastern Rite. We verbally extended an olive branch. When then Pope John Paul II returned 2 relics from the sack of Constantinople. Do you want to go into a history lesson on the sack of Constantinople?
All right. So it's only the 4th time.
Okay.
Which is great because it's about the 4th Crusade. So in the mid-13th century, if I remember off the top of my head correctly, a bunch of knights were resupplying in Constantinople on their way to the Holy Land to fight a crusade. One claimant to the Byzantine Empire approached them and hired them for use as mercenaries in his coup. Now, this coup failed, but most of the knights survived. The Byzantine emperor, the one who did not get usurped, and probably had the attempted usurper castrated and blinded or just plain killed, he refused to pay the knights when they demanded payment. Instead, these knights decided to sack Constantinople and make off with a bunch of goodies. These goodies included relics, and the damage that these knights did, it had a ripple effect and could be called one of the reasons why Constantinople fell to the Turks in 1453. Now, these knights were excommunicated by them, of course, but the damage relics were kept. Eventually, these relics wound their hands into the Catholic Church and were returned as a gesture of will by Pope John Paul II, as you just mentioned.
Yes. I saw an interesting article that said that theologians have theologians have suspected that the Eastern Rite would unify with the Church before the Reformationists would. I honestly disagree with this. I believe that some of the Reformation denominations would reunite with the Catholic Church before the Eastern Rite.
Well, this certainly depends on which denomination we're talking about, or which Protestant denominations we're talking about, as well as which branch of the Orthodox churches we're talking about.
This is very
Russia. Yeah, the Russian Orthodox Church is trying to set itself up as one of the new, more important patriarchates of the Orthodox, or of all of Orthodox Christianity, despite not being one of the classic five patriarchs, or five high patriarchs. The classic five being the Patriarch of Alexandria, Jerusalem, Rome, Constantinople, and Antioch. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, they claim to have the true Ark of the Covenant. They also hold, or even more books as part of their biblical canon than the Orthodox, who in turn hold more books as canon than the Catholics, who hold more books in canon than certain Protestant branches.
I think it's most Protestant branches, they hold more books than. As I noticed, if you buy a Bible at Walmart, it has the lesser of the books.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the reason why there's a number of denominations not canon is because they were Old Testament books where the only extant copies that they found were written in Greek instead of Hebrew, which Martin Luther found suspicious as he was busy translating the Bible into German. And I do apologize for people celebrating their American freedom a bit late this year.
I just saw that people were shooting each other. It's all good. No. Talking about Martin Luther and people get kind of angsty. Loud banging's fireworks there.
Yeah. Anyways, these books are called the Apocrypha, and I'm closing the window so it's quieter. That didn't help at all.
Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther.
Is in a German monk. Pretty much the founder of the Protestant movement. He literally protested the Catholic Church by listing 95 things that the Catholic Church was doing wrong and nailed it to the door of the cathedral.
I don't know what he honestly expected except to get excommunicated.
Although once again, we are straying very close to going off onto a tangent worthy of a real stream, not 15 minutes. This is about Vatican II.
Well, I mean, I do tangents. The stream lasts as long as it lasts.
Very well.
If we have interesting things to talk about, the stream goes on.
What do you say, chat? Is this interesting?
I got a Luther plus Calvin equals thumbs up.
I'm afraid that I haven't done enough research on John Calvin lately to have significant and important opinions. Other than
it's interesting, so out of the two people that are watching, both of them think it's interesting.
All right, sample size of 2, good enough to make conclusions on.
Convenient sampling size of 2.
All right, in that case, well, I guess we can flesh out some of the major Protestant denominations before we go back to talking about ecumenism.
Works for me. Well, let's get into the, what is it? LXX? LLX? Something like that. It's the 40, I believe it's called.
The 40?
Yes, that is the Old Testament that the Roman Catholics use.
Okay.
It's by Lynette Necryptica, I believe it is.
The Critical Books of the Bible.
I'll go put that back. That was actually what Jesus read, was the Greek version. At least that's what I'm told.
All right.
As it was translated by the 40 Jewish scholars, all independently, the legend goes. They were all independently translating, and they all came out with the exact same translation. And that's how it got the name the 40. And that's why it was held as canon.
Ah.
Yes, Jewish. Who do you expect to translate the Old Testament back in the day?
The Jews were the only people interested in the Old Testament of Jesus.
Yes. I was talking to chat.
I'm also talking to chat.
Oh.
Just because I can't see the screen chat doesn't mean that I don't respond to it.
Do you want to lose your wrench? I'll demod you. But yeah, the 40 is an interesting history. I want to learn more about it, but I already have all these books I need to read.
That is a very interesting piece of lore that you talked about with the independent translations. I've never heard that. I clearly need to do more biblical scholarship.
Yes, you do. But yeah, I was trying to ask the priest if that was canonized by the Roman Catholic Church, that translation. And he said since it has the 40 in it, all the 40, and it's not anything else, the Roman Catholic Church holds that translations are inherently flawed. Mm-hmm. And so there's no reason why it shouldn't be. He doesn't know who translated it due to it's not really written on it too well. Mm-hmm. But he says there's no reason he thinks that it isn't canon. And I like it because it's a very verbose translation. As in each verse is almost twice as long word-wise as normal verses.
Wow.
And so, in some areas, some of them are almost the same, just slight verbiage changes. But others are a lot longer, a lot more in-depth, and bridge the difference between the King James Version and the Douay-Rheims version.
You've cut out. I can't hear you.
Oh, it bridges the gaps between the King James Version and the Douay-Rheims version. It's like one will say one thing and the other will say something that seems completely different. That makes them both make sense.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, now let's go back, or get off of this tangent and go back to our original tangent about various branches of Protestantism. How much would you say that you know about Calvin?
I did a little bit of research into it, but not much. I believe it believes in predestination.
Yes, that is also the go-to thing that I think about when it comes to Calvin. What do you say, chat? What is Calvinism to you?
I think they're lagged a little bit, but they're still talking about Jews. It's the chat. They always talk about Jews. The chat. Oy vey. I'm getting the stream taken down. I'm getting a community strike. I don't think they're responding to that.
Mm-hmm. So,
they maybe did, but my chat disappeared.
Let's discuss predestination and our it.
I think it's a load of crap, as there is free will. God explicitly made us in his image, which includes free will. I believe that's what God making us in his image means, is that he gave us free will.
Mm-hmm.
That God doesn't look like a man. The icon back there, the Father doesn't look like that. The Father doesn't look like man at all. I use it as a representation to remind me to pray.
Mm-hmm. Now, one objection to the whole idea of free will that one of my friends and counterparts had back when was that if God is...
Can you repeat that?
Okay, right. So one of my friends in Peace Corps, his main objection to the idea of free will was that if God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and made the universe, then and he made me, then he would know when he made me what I would do. So how do I even have free will? He planned he knows exactly what's going to happen with me before I was even formed. What would your response to that be?
I'd tell him the joke on Calvinism is the Calvinist goes to heaven, and there's two lines. One that says predestination and the other one that says non-predestination. The Calvinist gets in the line of the predestination because he figures he's predestined to go to heaven. An angel walks up to him and says, "Why'd you get in this line?" "Because I'm predestined. Did you decide that?" He was like, "Oh." And then he walks over to the other line. And then he walks over to him. "Why'd you get in this line?" "Well, someone told me to."
So the response that I gave my friend at Peace Corps, which sadly did not convince him, is that while God knows what's going to happen, it's not his intention that that people who are seemingly predestined for hell and damnation, it is not God's intention, not his will, that these people commit whatever sin leads them to hell. He clearly gives them the law. He clearly shows them love and salvation. But these people choose to reject it.
Well, my biggest problem with predestination is when I had that other book up here, The River of Fire, is I actually buy into this philosophy or this theology on heaven and hell. Is basically when we go before judgment, God isn't passing judgment as much as he is judgment. It's his all-encompassing fiery love is what judges us. We either harden to his love, the burning fire of his love, and get burnt by his love, or we embrace it and get purified. So therefore, hell doesn't actually exist as in Hades anymore. That was pretty much completely destroyed. We all go to the same place, but the difference between heaven and hell is whether you harden, get burnt by God's love, or if you embrace it and you get purified by it.
Now, you said that Hades was, whatever passed for Hades. When was that destroyed, in your opinion?
That was destroyed when Jesus descended into Hades and rose again.
The heroine.
And this is a commonly held belief by the Eastern Orthodox, to my knowledge. Is I was talking to the Eastern Orthodox priest when I was trying to convert, and I asked him, "Is this actually what you guys believe?" Because I kind of like it, but I'm unsure on what actually is believed here. Is I've always thought of hell as Dante's Divine Comedy hell.
Now, I will point out that Dante Alighieri, the Divine Comedy, he was not a priest. He never was a priest. He wrote the very popular poem, but it is not part of any canon. Dante's Divine Comedy is glorified fan fiction, filled with political commentary in the day. He condemned the then Pope of the day. He condemned the Greeks. He condemned a lot of his rivals. I'm going to send you a link to a fairly good summary video of the Divine Comedy.
I can't play that on stream for copyright reasons.
We can link it to the chat and the video description later.
Yeah.
Besides, it's a long video. It's worth watching.
Put it in that video description, then. I don't want to be losing video viewers to watching that.
So, now that we have discussed what little we know about Calvinism, and we both rejected the idea of predestination, let's talk about... let's do something quick and funny. The Church of England.
Oh, boy. I want a divorce. No. Okay, I'll make my own church. I believe if the Roman Catholic Church accepts divorce, the Church of England will fall in tow.
I approve.
We also have to accept birth control.
Yes, while originally the Church of England was fairly similar to the Catholic Church, things like the puritanical, something of a puritanical movement in the time of the English Civil War, that influenced England, certainly did get people thinking in terms of anti-idolatry, anti-high church stuff, basically. And as time went by, the Church of England began drifting very different theological directions. And it is now at the point of sanctioning gay marriage, female ordination, ordaining female priests who are also in a lesbian marriage. A fairly funny thing happened back in 2014.
When?
2014, I believe.
Okay.
The big Anglican Communion. It voted as a whole to censor the American Church of England, the Episcopalians, for promoting homosexual activity. Now, this was because the West African Episcopalian churches voted as a fairly heavy block to censor. One of my friends on Facebook, he is the son of an Episcopalian minister, and he posted an article shortly after that decision saying, okay, the Anglican community must be stopped because it is a relic of colonialism. Even when West Africans are using it to oppress Americans.
John, you know as well as I do that white people can't be oppressed.
Indeed not.
But let's hit up another denomination while we're going against the... I got a call for sauce. I don't know what they want sauce of. Let me know what you want sauce of. But
I think I know what he's talking about.
Oh, you know what he's talking about?
He wants sauce in what I called.
Okay. I'll just post it in the Discord and I'll copy paste it over. Where's that stinking thing? There it is. What do you want, Devin? No, I'm going to be posting the link here in a second. No, I'm not doing karaoke. You do not want me to do karaoke. I'm not JF.
All right, found my first link of sauce. It's pretty bland because it's just Washington Post. Let me see if I can find something a little spicier.
Okay, what'd you say?
All right. You'll be happy to know that I have the sauce. It's a Washington Post article, so it's not that spicy. But it is true.
Okay, I just uploaded it, and then I'll post that in the chat. And I'll make sure to put that in a document just so I can post it into the description at the end. Oh, where the hell is Notepad?
Now, I feel that it is worth noting that there are some things that the Church of England has been doing right, despite the odds. They did do a fairly good job in translating rites from Latin to the English vernacular after they made their split away, but still wanted to maintain some high church elements, to the point where they were consulted when or in or during the Second Vatican Council on how to best translate the Latin rites into English. They were at least consulted. They didn't just completely plagiarize them.
Well, that's what consulted means. Well, consulted could mean anything from they consulted and then they used their works to they came up to them was like, hey, how do we do this? Oh, okay, that's great. And then they use something else.
Yes. Although I suppose if I want to assemble a bookshelf of various religious texts that I don't fully agree with, the Anglican Book of Common Prayer would have a spot on it. Probably on the favorable spectrum.
It's a bookshelf of things that I don't 100% agree with everything. A lot of it's things I agree with a lot, and a lot of things that I just want to learn about, but some of the things I don't agree with at all. And the Book of Mormon's over on the other bookshelf because I don't want to touch it at all. It was a gift from Mormons, and I just can't bring myself to throw it away.
Yeah.
You know how it is. Someone gives you a gift, you don't want it, and you're just stuck with it.
I understand how that goes.
No, we're not going to gas the Mormons.
No, they're good people. Leave them alone. They're not the best people.
I mean, they have a
but
couple
they're certainly
wives,
nice.
But they have to be pretty nice to get wives. Plural.
Although it should be that the mainline Mormon church, the mainline Council of Elders of the Society of Latter-day Saints.
Sorry, someone just posted, the Mormons are right about black people.
That they're perfectly fine 60s.
What?
Is he talking about the original belief that the soul, or that black people, or the souls of people, or the same souls of people who had rebelled against God in the beginning?
Yeah, the fallen angels.
And as a result, the Mormon leadership refused to accept them as priests or elders in the Mormon society until, what, the 80s?
You're gonna make me end up having to put the chat censor on. That you can't just drop the N-word in chat.
I need a link to the chat.
Oh.
I need to see the chat.
You'll be able to watch it after. Just mute the video.
But I don't want to watch the video. I know what I said what I said, and I mean what I meant.
That's why you mute it. You don't watch the video, you watch the chat. Where were we? We totally got off track with that.
Well, we were discussing Protestants. We said all that needed to be said about the Church of England, and then some. You mentioned the Baptists, and then we just took a dive into the lake.
Yeah. What about the Western Baptists?
The Western Baptists. I'm afraid I'm not that.
Southern Baptists. That's it.
Yeah, the Southern Baptist Convention. They're the big
right.
Unfortunately, I have not read any statements put out by the Southern Baptist Church. So I can't be certain exactly what they believe and how it's different to what I believe and what
I know they're
various
really
other
strict.
Baptists.
That's all I really know about them.
Anyone from chat want to help us out on this?
The chat is dark and full of Devin. Devin's basically monologuing the chat, and it's pretty good. He wants to know what the Catholic stance on the Jews is.
They don't deserve to be.
It's an actual pretty open stance. As I was just looking at this.
I have in my hands a copy of the documents of Vatican II, published this book was published 1966.
I have a second version of that. There's non-Christian denominations. I just read this before the stream too, online.
All right, here we go. In the section that explicitly about the Jews, the Church repudiates all persecutions against any man. Moreover, mindful of her common patrimony with the Jews, and motivated by the gospel's spiritual love and no political consideration, she deplores hatred, persecutions, and displays of anti-Semitism directed against the Jews at any time and from any source. And we probably lost you to Catholicism forever, didn't we?
Devin was never going to be Catholicism. But the church's stance before that was actually, I don't want to say pretty good, but we will say woke. Are you familiar with it?
It was very strict, very harsh.
Yes.
The
Jews were a cursed people for killing the Lord, if I remember this right, and that they were cursed to be wandering the Lord without roaming the world, blind to Christ and without a homeland until the end times.
Well, you could, if you also want to look at the harsh history of the church, the Spanish Inquisition is absolutely a great place to start.
It's okay. I hate the Mexicans too. What? Oh, Spanish. Wrong Spanish.
Yeah. Yes. 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but King Ferdinand of Spain also issued the Alhambra Decree, declaring that all Muslims and Jews had to convert Spain or get out.
Pretty based.
Now, this led to a lot of secret Muslims, secret Jews. The secret Jews were called Marranos. And in order to it was Spanish. So they used the Spanish version of the word, I guess.
Okay.
And in order to ferret them out, the Spanish Inquisition was formed. Now, one horrible thing about the Spanish Inquisition is that anyone that they found guilty and was then executed, the Inquisition would inherit their land or their wealth.
I really don't expect the Spanish Inquisition in this stream.
Nobody expects it, my friend. But now we're getting perilously far from Vatican II.
It's okay.
Let's talk about.
They just go on tangents.
Let's talk about one more branch of Protestantism, and then we will go back to Ecumenism.
Okay.
Got a branch to talk about?
we can always talk about the non-denominationals.
I was also thinking about them. So, what comes to your mind, Aaron, when you think of non-denominationals?
Openly queer priest.
You can get that in a lot of independent denominations as well as the Church of England, as mentioned, you've heard the joke says, Catholicism light, all the rituals, none of the guilt.
One moment.
You're about to pull up some.
Sorry about that.
You're about to pull up something spicy.
No, I had to yell at my roommate for having their TV too loud.
All right. Non-denominational churches. What it typically means to me is someone that their target group, or at least most of their churchgoers, are people who identify as spiritual but not really religious, but grew up Christian and can't really shake the idea. So they go for something fairly generic and uplifting. Without having been to non-denominational churches, my stereotypical impressions, and I realize just how accurate that can be, is of a church with not very good music, a couple of Bible readings, and sermons about love, kindness, without anything about sin, atonement, self-improvement.
So
Life is
basically, a
harsh.
Catholic Mass if it keeps on its way in 20 years.
God willing, no.
I mean, I've only heard the word purgatory used once in the past 10 years in the Catholic Mass, and that was when I was in a different archdiocese. And he alluded to hell and explicitly said purgatory in his homily. And I was very impressed. This is like, this is the church I've been looking for. But then life happened and I had to move out of that archdiocese back to my current one.
Mm-hmm.
But it was quite an interesting thing. Where were we again? I keep getting on these tangents.
Discussing various branches of Protestantism and then move on to non-denominationalism.
Okay.
Now, one thing that I would like to say is that there's a lot of, I would only consider churches or Protestant churches to be ones that were formed during the 14th, during the 15th, 16th, 17th century as well. Ones who were truly protest the Catholic Church and the horrible abuses of the time before the Counter-Reformation. Churches that split off of, or that either formed independently outside of the Catholic sphere or later split off from these various Protestant churches. I would not label them as Protestant. Once you have the Great Awakening of the 19th century in America, I believe that's what started what is a lot of the churches that form the evangelical these days. Some Baptists could be considered Protestants under my definition. Other Baptist groups are not.
Yeah. The Protestant mess is just or the Protestant group is just a mess in general if you try to get into tracing its lineage. It's just splinter after splinter after splinter, pretty much off of Lutherans. And the question is was the Catholic Church a splinter off the Eastern Orthodox Church or vice versa?
Catholics, Protestants before it was cool.
Darn right. Eastern Orthodox are the first Protestants to change my mind.
Hmm.
And then they have their splinter group of the Coptics, or the Oriental Orthodox, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
I like some of their theology, but on the other hand, some of it's absolute garbage.
What is some of this Orthodox theology that you highly disagree with? I swear we'll get back to Vatican II, guys.
What do I disagree with?
Yeah.
The heresy that they think Jesus was pretty much a man possessed by God. That's a little bit of a straw man of what they think, but it can be interpreted that way. Is they don't see God as one man with a divine, sort of a combined divine and human nature. They see him as two totally separate natures. At least they sort of did. They left it very ambiguous in their second clarification of it before they got separated. Now they just claim it's a mystery, followed by some chiptune music.
Oh, the Coptic Church. Oh, wait. Were you talking about the Coptic Church specifically?
Yeah.
Or Orthodoxy as a whole?
That's Coptics.
Oh, you're talking about what? Chalcidians?
Yeah. No, that's the Jewish church, Devin. Cut dick. That's the synagogue.
Okay. So, before we go looking for any more weeds, get high. We are going to talk about ecumenism as a result of Vatican II. So, tell us what you wrote in that paper about ecumenism.
A lot of quotes. I'm gonna have it open right here.
What were some of the conclusions that you wrote or that you created as a result of this paper?
That the Catholic Church really has an open door to try to reunify with these churches, but it doesn't cuck on anything. It still says that it's the only way to salvation necessarily as a pure form. These other churches, you can get to salvation, but you can't benefit fully from it. So it's only like a cucked cuck. It's not a full cuck. But in a way, it's not even really a cuck, as it's beneficial. You ever just like saying a word so much you just fit into a sentence 10 times?
Well, if you keep on using the word cuck, you're eventually going to cut your brain out of perfectly good other words. So that's the danger of overuse.
Fair enough. Well,
so my thoughts about the whole ecumenical movement, or ecumenism movement as a result of Vatican, that was something that it has been inevitable and definitely a step in the right direction. The 30 Years' War from 1619 to 1649, that was a horrible mistake. It started out as Protestants fighting Catholics and ended up with a Catholic cardinal bankrolling Catholics fighting the Catholic Emperor of Austria because he didn't want the Habsburg family to get power. The 30 Years' War was a horrible mess.
It sounds like a bit of a mess.
It ruined Germany.
Worse or about the same as the Weimar Republic?
Worse. It destroyed the whole Roman Empire.
Well, the Weimar Republic destroyed itself, so...
The Weimar Republic created the Third German Empire. The 30 Years' War ruined the First German Empire.
I guess that is a fair point.
So if you are going to argue from a very point of view, the Weimar Republic was far more beneficial for Germany than the 30 Years' War.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than it tried to rebuild after Germany was ruined by the First World War.
Or something.
Take your time thinking about it. Oh, yes. Back to what I was saying about how ecumenism is a better option. Seeing as how trying to kill heretics or trying to kill denominations that you do not agree on those grounds does not work, then absolutely dialogue and discussion is the only way that you can really change hearts and minds. Conversion at sword point doesn't lead to true conversion.
Correct.
It just leads to someone lying to you and planning to attack you. So the Catholic Church, being large and organized, far larger and organized than any Protestant church, maybe all of them put together at the time, I would need to check numbers or old statistics, it absolutely was in a better and more credible position.
On that note, let's take a tangent into another Vatican II document.
Mm-hmm.
The Freedom of Religion document from Vatican II. I forget what it's called.
The Declaration on Religious Freedom.
Yes. That's what the United States Constitution should have read, in my opinion.
What is the specific point that you are referring to in the whole Declaration on Religious Freedom?
How explicitly it states that it's not a freedom from religion, but a freedom of religion. That I have the right to practice my religion, but your religion can't infringe upon my religion. But that doesn't mean I don't have a right to practice my religion wherever I want. Assuming I don't just walk into your religion and I don't walk into a mosque and start yelling, "Praise Jesus."
And claiming that you are the bacon fairy.
Well, I still do that.
You see, this is going to be a stream about Vatican II, but this is when I actually start bringing it, and we start having an intervention about you and bacon.
I don't have a problem. You have a problem. We're approaching the 1 hour mark, so I think we've had a good stream. Unless there's something you want to bring up.
He barely talks about ecumenism proper. We went on multiple tangents. I kicked around multiple ideas for future streams. All of them are related around history.
History streams are always fun. The chat suggests that we give all Jews bacon.
But I would like to stop being curious after this quote that is misattributed to St. Francis, the Oscar Wilde of Catholic quotations. I say that because Oscar Wilde gets many things attributed to him. Some of them are actually his, many are not. St. Francis of Assisi is also reputed to have said many things, but not all of them are his.
Don't use your smartphone during church. St. Francis of Assisi.
Exactly. Preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. Just like that, you should try and where ecumenism can be used as a bridge to convert people from other denominations of Christianity to your own. Try to do it without words. Show through actions indeed. But when asked, clear theology, why your denomination is true and correct.
Makes sense. And that's not St. Francis?
I believe.
I don't know. I have like 3 books on
Time
St.
for me to
Francis
fact
back
check.
here, so if it is, it's going to come up. I have St. Francis right over there. A lot of the stream has turned into fact checking.
There is my source on it not being from St. Francis Assisi.
Okay.
And
well,
here we go. Here is the link that I mentioned to that summary of Dante's Divine Comedy, broken up into 3 parts.
I'll paste those into the doobly-doo after the stream. We're not doing karaoke. John already did karaoke of Anaconda, and that was pretty epic, but we don't do that anymore. Remember that one?
I do remember that time.
Yeah, that was good stuff. Well, it was a pleasure having you on.
It was good to be here.
Well, take care, and I'll wrap up the stream.
All right.
Well, it was a pleasure having you all here, and God bless. You and I in a little shop, buy a bag of balloons with the money we've got, set them free at the break of dawn, till one by one they were gone. Back at base, bugs in the software. Devin, you are not getting any more of this.